Hi everyone, my name is Mary Destino and I'm here with
Shannon Brennan,
and today we're going to talk about a controversial issue in the media.
which is it okay for the media to produce biased news?
So ultimately what this issue comes down to is a battle of information versus opinion.
Information is the cold hard facts that the news would provide versus the opinion, which is a reaction by either the broadcaster or the audience.
So some people would say that they expect their news to be strictly information. They don't want any opinions tampered with it. They rather just know the cold hard facts, which is how we feel. However, after doing research, we've learned that the news does kind of push a certain agenda, not always, but sometimes. So the question is whether or not that's okay and whether or not people in America appreciate that.
So first off, we're going to talk about social media versus the news. And social media is a huge impact on how people get their information because celebrities will often promote something that they feel strongly about, and then the audience will go, "Oh, well, if the celebrity's doing it, I should too." Versus the news, which will just state the facts about it.
Or at least that's what's expected. So an example we pulled was a tweet from Paris Hilton, and she said, "In bed watching Family Guy. Love this show. So hilarious. Stewie is my favorite. Smiley face. Love his accent."
So obviously that this is a very biased opinion towards Family Guy and that being her favorite show.
So what we would say is, at least I think in our personal opinions, we don't care if social media is biased because it's kind of, that's what we expect. It's people brand imaging themselves. So Paris Hilton speaking for herself, whereas the news is kind of this like unidentified, like it's kind of supposed to be a dependable source. It's just supposed to be stating the facts, or at least that's what we feel is projected, that the news should only be stating facts, not how they feel about an issue at hand.
And even like Paris Hilton stating like what she likes is kind of fun for the audience because like let's say like I really liked Family Guy and I can relate to her in some level. So even though Paris Hilton and I are very different on like social scales and everything else, like that's something we can relate to.
Yeah, I totally agree. So that's kind of the difference between social media and the news, and why it's okay to be biased in social media and why people kind of expect less biasy from the news.
So honesty is a core value in American society. So Thomas Jefferson said, "Honesty is the first chapter in the book of wisdom."
So basically what we've learned from research is that people appreciate honesty. I think, speaking from personal experiences, I like it when people are honest with me. Or even I like the fact that people allow me to think my own thoughts. I don't think anyone really appreciates it when someone forces their opinion on, or forces their train of thought on you and expects you to think the same way as them. So because of this, we would expect the news not to force an opinion, the world wouldn't appreciate an opinion being forced on them.
A quote we found is, "Mass media credibility has been defined and studied largely as an attribute of message sources." This article argues that trust in media can be better understood as a relational variable, an audience response to media content.
So overall, what we gathered from that quote was that the way the media responds to an event is actually a reaction and not a unbiased opinion. So they are the first audience, and then they take their reaction and project it to us. So, for example, with politics, a lot of the times, not always, but sometimes what will happen is a political debate will happen, and then a news station will take it, and then what they liked from it, they will tell and share the audience, and then maybe withdraw some of the other facts. Another thing is that I feel like this comes up a lot, is that people say you don't hear enough of the good news.
That's true. Like I have noticed that. Like every time I'd be sitting at home and the news would come on, like you'd hear like about the terrorist attacks or what else has come up? Donald Trump and the presidency and all the troubles he's going through.
Yeah.
And it's just really common. But it's unlikely to hear like, oh, like Good Samaritan.
Yeah, it's like you don't hear enough of the little stories. It feels like the first 5 minutes of the news is maybe like a cute story about someone saving a dog or something, and then the rest of it is just all bad. And there's definitely some truth to that. There's definitely bad things going on in our world, but
yeah, I've definitely noticed that.
I don't think that all of the truth is necessarily shared about the great things that are happening in our world.
Very true. So information from television, internet, radio, and printed materials, collectively termed mass media, saturates modern society. So this is huge. So like I'll be like in the car driving to school, well last year at least, and I'll be listening to the radio and I'll hear like a cover story on the radio, and then the people on air will be talking about something big that happened, and then they'll like laugh and say their jokes. And even though they're journalists and journalists aren't supposed to state their opinion, like they'll still like say their opinion because that's what you naturally do when you're talking. And I'll like listen and then I'll think, oh, maybe like that's a good point, but it might also be something that I do not agree with.
That's why it's important for it to be unbiased, because when a story is biased, it will force you not to think your own thoughts. Whereas when it's unbiased, you're allowed to form your own opinions. You can think freely. And overall, like, I feel that way a lot. Like, whenever I see a movie or TV, I feel very much influenced. And I think what this quote is overall trying to say is that what happens on the internet, the radio, printed materials, television, it does affect us in our daily lives. So that's why it's important that the content that it's producing is completely unbiased.
Especially with like late night talk shows that are coming on. For instance, like Stephen Colbert and his news reports, or Ellen, or on Saturday Night Live, the weekly updates. They'll like say something that's recently happened, and then they'll be talking about their opinion, or they'll make a joke towards it. And that's just really common in modern society because that's what people are starting to like to hear.
Yeah, and I think sometimes with those shows it's okay, but then the problem is that even when like the main sources of their news are becoming unbiased is when it's like a serious problem.
That's true.
So
the news is where people get their information.
Yeah, which is pretty simply, I mean, it's a pretty simple concept that without the news, we wouldn't know what's going on in the other side of the world, which is like one of the great things with modern technology is that because of the news, we can know what's going on in China or some other country halfway across the world. However, if the news is being portrayed in a light that's not completely honest, then there's no way for us to know about what's going on in a completely honest way.
Yeah, and like when I was younger, I used to come home every day, and my mom would be making dinner, and around like 5 o'clock, the news would be always on the TV, and then we'll just like hear what's going on in the world, and that would give me like my update. Or even when I wake up in the morning, we'd watch like CBS or whatever's on TV, and then I'll get like a aspect of what's going on in the world. So it's like really important.
Yeah, totally agree. Okay, so media often instruct the public about what their opinion should be. So this is another quote, and basically it's what it says. It's that media is pushing their opinion onto the people as opposed to letting them think their own thoughts. And I feel that way a lot. Like, I really do feel like what the media portrays causes me to believe what they're saying. I feel like I trust the media a lot, so whatever they say, I do tend to believe.
Yeah, because that's our main source of how we get our information, so it's good to trust it.
Mm-hmm.
So media really evolved in the 1440s when Johannes Gutenberg invented the printing press.
So the printing press changed the world in a lot of ways. One quote that we grabbed from an article said, "Attending this proliferation was a developing awareness that ostensibly objective news accounts could be influenced by the biases of professional communicators." So basically what this is saying is that the printing press allowed for the first time people to really push any agenda they had. So if people wanted to push the political agenda that they were affiliated with, they really could now with this source of mass media.
So mainly what we've come to conclude about the printing press is it uses propaganda, which sways the audience's opinion, political agendas, and product placement. The confidence of the public in the last media has decreased over the last decade.
The people have noticed that the media isn't being completely honest, or they're withholding stories, or they're pushing an opinion and they don't appreciate that. So overall, why does it matter? Why should the news be unbiased?
When I'm watching the news, I want to see what's truly happening in the world, and I don't want to see something that's going on that's not necessarily true. So, for instance, like the terrorist attacks, I want to know what's going on, who did it. I don't want to see, like, who's afraid of this group of people, because that's just not what we care about. That's not what we can do to, like, get anywhere.
That's true. And the thing is the news is the light. Like, the news is projecting the life we live, so it really does affect our lives. So if we are being told false information, then it will affect the way we live our lives, and it'll change things.
Today, I'm Shannon.
I'm Mary.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye.